Welcome everybody. The next one I think is probably my sort of current favorite. This is a Schwang Rudow. That means the entrance. So it means to enter in or to go in. And this is, Schwang means two or a pair. So that's kind of a curious name. I don't know if that's a common name or not. When I collected this in Beijing many years ago, that's the name I was told. I hadn't seen it before and I've never seen one since. So I'm assuming this is a fairly rare type, but again, that may simply because not many of them survived to our time. It's hard to say for certain. I really like this blade form. That's what we were just talking about. It's relatively straight, so when you're close, you can deliver a good percussive kind of blow. If you're hitting to the collarbone, for example, boom, cutting in there, good solid percussive blow. But as with the Guitou Dao, as with the tip of the Hudie Dao, you have this curved section, which is really good for slicing. So if you're a little bit further away and just reaching the face of the neck or the inside of the arm, and you're moving quickly, you can give a good slicing cut. If you're in close, of course, and you haven't room to hit with percussion, is not going to get enough of a solid blow, you can also slice when you're in close. So I think this is a really useful blade design. But again, like these other blades, that is too curved to really thrust with, right? If you try to thrust in, or even with it this way, sideways, it's going to tend to slip off. It's hard again. You can poke downward with a jaw, but usually, you know, you don't want to be that close if you're knife fighting because then the other guy might be stabbing you as well. So, but if you have to, you have that. So I think it's a really useful kind of design, minus the ability to thrust. The other side of that, though, the Schwang Rudow, the pair or two possible entrances, is the other end, which has this really solid iron sort of bird beak here. And it's interesting, you have this curved grip. And you might think that would be straight, you know, sort of like here with your Pai Dao, you can hit with the pommel this way. But that's kind of, look at my wrist. It's pretty tight on the wrist to be bent back like that to hit. This one, as it curves, the way it curves, you can see, yeah, if I'm coming in, I don't have to tweak my wrist back so far. I can really strike. So if I'm in close, or if the Daofa is trying to grab me or something, I can strike to the arm. This is a really solid piece of iron here. I can hit to the arm, hit into the body. So I may hit, and then I could 1, 2. There's your pair of entrances, if you will, 1, 2, and get in. So it's kind of like this really built-in aspect. You can argue, of course, with any fighting knife. You can use the butt end to strike, that pommel to strike, but you don't usually see one that is really, really set up to strike the way this one is. And it's really forged integral. The tang comes down and forms this butt cap or this bird beak pommel, and the sides here are welded, excuse me, not welded, they are riveted on. So you have those two panels either side, the scales, nice wood scales, riveted on. So typically a grip is slid over and then peened over the tang. Here instead, the tang is forged integral to make this really bird beak for striking. It also has this sort of pie crust shaped guard, right, lobed guard, right, 6 lobes, that I think is also part of striking. So you can use that for hitting and striking. So this is, again, it's also a very good steel. It has a 14.5-inch blade, so pretty good length blade, and it's 22.5 overall. That's 36, almost 37 centimeter long blade with 57 centimeters overall. So it's a good length, but clearly a knife and not a sword. But it's also made of, you can see it, if you can see it in close with your eyes in good light, you can see nice patterning and hardened edge. So it's a really well-made blade. This next one, from these ones you can see all generally more cutting oriented. Of course, your Hudie Dao and the Pai Dao can use the tip, but still kind of the weight and balance of them tends to feel a little bit more cutting oriented. This one is one, also another one I've never seen anything similar to before. Has a very nice hardwood checkered grip. Here, and this is also, again, a really nicely pattern welded blade with a very clear hardened edge. So a really well-made blade, made by a bladesmith, a swordsmith, not just made by a blacksmith. The The length is 14 inches, so 35.5 centimeters. Overall, it's 17 and 3/4 inches long, and that's 45 centimeters, so pretty long blade. This, I would say, and really I have to say, even though it's not really sharp anymore, it's fairly sharp. I wouldn't have hit hard, but I can do that. It won't cut. But boy, this tip, just touching it, is really kind of uncomfortable. It's a very, very sharp tip. So this is clearly a knife. Unlike a Pai Dao, which might have some utilitarian use outside of fighting, this is really, I think, designed for one thing, and that is to thrust. You could get through chainmail. You might even get through, the Chinese had plate armor that was brigandine armor, small plates that overlapped, but there are little gaps sometimes depending on the quality of the armor. So if you're in close, this could potentially get through. Of course, you can get through into the underarm and under the chin. So this is clearly a fighting knife. It has an edge. You can give a slicing cut. It doesn't have the weight for a real percussive cut, but, well, I think this would easily penetrate armor if you get a good saw, if you hit it in the right place, and certainly a human body. It's about a centimeter thick here at the base, so it's a very, very stout blade. It's not, no flex to it at all. So really good, solid piece. Clearly, I would think of as a secondary weapon on the battlefield, secondary to your sword. If you're in close, you have that knife that you can draw and use. Or should you lose your main weapon, you have that slim little dagger that really, really do the job. And like, as with other typical of Chinese knives, it has a pigskin leather scabbard. Next one here, this is a ring pommel dagger. I've seen daggers, similar daggers with grips like this, so you can see a difference in quality. This one looks like it might have been broken and repaired, which they definitely did. I mean, you don't throw away a good blade. The ring pommel could be used for a couple of things. One is make good throwing weapons. I like to practice throwing with my left because I have my sword. You can cut, and as the Daifeng to deal with that, you can throw your blade in as well. You can be in a ready position or having just deflected, reach behind. This obviously is tricky to do at real speed, but let's say I have my jian, and as I do my deflection, I also reach to my hip or just behind my back and pull my blade out. And as I'm coming with my countercut, I may also be throwing a blade from underneath. It's really more of a distraction than anything else. It's only going to do so much damage, but it is a distraction. I could also be in a ready position, throw the blade. Daifeng does something to either bat it aside with his weapon or dodge it, and I use that, break his structure, and come in with another cut. So there was a whole system of fei jian, flying jian, you could say throwing knives, or literally flying jian. Remember, I think everybody understands that regardless of length, this is a jian. So something of this length is a jian, and something of that length is a jian, same as this is a dao, and a full-length saber is a dao. But there was a whole system of fei jian in the Wudang tradition that seems to be pretty much essentially lost. So we only see little bits of it here and there in forms where a movement throws like this, or before they draw their sword, there's a throw, and then you take your weapon. So that's one way they would use those kind of weapons. And that ring is there because you have a little bit of basically a rag, a little flag that helps to stabilize it on its way to the target, right? So it's like feathers on an arrow. Another way of using these is with the ring, and I just imitate this because I haven't trained it. There's ways of turning it this way. So with reverse grip, with your index finger through, there are systems of fighting where you're using a reverse grip, but you also swing it up this way, swing it around. You can swing it down so I get more reach. If I had here, I could reach so far with a dagger, say like this, but if it's this way, you can swing it out. So you go out, cut with a P cut, bring it back in. So that's another style of fighting. It looks interesting. Unfortunately, I've never had a chance to learn it, but that's that ring dagger way of fighting. Also, they can dart it out. They shoot it out and dart it this way. So you get the reach, comes out, boom, and you thrust with it there, and then bring it back. So ring pommel, so it can be used different ways. Interesting one. And the last one here is just really not, just kind of, just because I happen to have it, not good steel. You probably can't hear that, but tapping on it has a very dull sound. But this is during the Chinese Republic. This was an officer's dagger, something really to show his rank. Not a particularly good fighting weapon because of the quality of steel, but it could be sharp. It would work for at least a little bit. But that is Chinese Republican era dagger for officers, really copying a style that was popular in Japan at the time. So there you have it. I thought it's a kind of a quick, forgive me for speaking a little bit quickly because we had a lot to go over and I don't want to keep us waiting too long for the seminar. But I think this kind of gives you a nice overview of Chinese fighting knives and the different styles and general shapes that there are.